boys are back.
The boys are back in town.
That's what I was hoping you would do rather than talking about the TV show that you were obsessed with for like a half a year.
Oh, The Boys?
Yeah,
Great TV show.
Superhero show? Hi, bud. You like The Boys?
I think season 3 is coming out soon.
What?
Yeah, The Boys TV show.
That's not what we're talking about here.
It's a great show. I think everyone's watching this podcast would probably dig it.
Superheroes?
Kind of.
Kind of.
It's poking fun at superheroes.
Is it a comedy, a drama? Like what's going on in it?
It's a comedy drama. So you hit both of them.
You know, my cat just loves walking on the
But it was originally like a graphic novel comic book thing. And then the show, it's political. What's the word? It's commenting on current trends as well as commenting on the superhero genre, as well as commenting on the state of the world that we're living in. It's a lot of stuff that's in that. Commenting
on trends as far as when it was written?
No. So it's up to, I mean, the graphic novel is not like it's old, but it's been reworked and rewritten to focus on current events that are taking place. For example, there's a storyline based around like what was going on in the politics of like 2020, 2019 type stuff. They had a whole little arc on that. So it's interesting how it's commenting on, it's kind of like how like sitcoms will do that type of stuff where they'll like make fun of what's going on in the world.
What they do is they'll make a joke, haha, funny, everybody laughs, and then they go and look at the camera.
Yeah.
An audio version.
But I think the difference with this is I think it won't be outdated if you watch in like 10 years. Because I think it'll still be applicable. It's not like making references to things. It's just doing more of like a commentary on stuff.
That would be my worry with it, is that it is just like, okay, yeah, this was relevant in 2019. Now it's 2021 and a lot of things have happened.
It's a little over the top with raunchiness. And violence every so often. Season 2 was a little bit of a miss for me until about halfway through. So if you're on the fence, I say stick with it. If you can get through. Same with like Game of Thrones. If you can get past the first like 4 episodes of Game of Thrones, then you've seen all the tits and ass you'll see for the whole show pretty much.
Cats are playing under the door. We've strategized. If you've listened to this episode, you may be listening for the chronicles of my cats meowing. You okay, bud?
Choking on tea. We have tea.
We do have tea. I've been on a tea hype. We'll get in that in a second. So my cat.
Yeah, cats.
We've let one of them in because he's the one that meows under the door. He goes, meow. The other one doesn't, but now they're playing underneath the door, and I'm almost certain that you can't hear it. So I don't care.
Stop. They'll
lose
stop interest
at some point. He already has. But tea is something I've gained a lot of interest in as of late.
Yeah, any particular reason?
Coffee makes me feel like I'm crazy.
Are you having non-caffeinated tea or?
No, I'm having straight black tea right now. Oh. I think it's English breakfast. I don't know what it is.
Probably. Yeah.
Something like that. So coffee just makes me feel jittery. Tea doesn't do it as much. Still gives me caffeine and I feel kind of awake. Though.
Well, it has a calming atmosphere to it.
I mean, it does, but also it kind of is shitty tea in my mind. It has that like weird wax taste. You know what I'm talking about?
You're drinking right now?
Just not that one. Like a lot of tea, a lot of shitty coffee. So now I'm like, slippery slope.
See, I'd recommend going to shout out, not sponsored though, World Market. Their area in the back has a really fun tea area for all different places in the world. I mean, it's the World Market. So I think the problem with tea though, when you get into it, same with any new drink, food, whatever, you don't know where to start. There's so many options. So you gotta get like a sampler. Like I just recently started drinking alcohol. I don't even know what to pick up. Only things I've drinking have been stuff that people are like, hey, you want to try this?
That's a good way to go.
Yeah, so my family is doing a wine sampler thing over Christmas when I go visit them. So I'm practicing.
You might like. Honestly, I could see you like a wine dude. I'm not a big fan.
I could see that. I tried. I don't know what I tried, but I tried a certain wine when I was with my dad for Thanksgiving. Did not like it.
No.
No, it was
so.
A little over.
While I get my cat off the desk, the particular thing I like about wine is oftentimes it's just really, it's like drinking a warm soda.
Okay, a warm soda.
And so many people are probably shitting on me right now because the majority of our audience are people in their like 25 and up.
Sure, yeah, very sophisticated.
So, very, very sophisticated. Guaranteed. Once you hit 25, your sophistication qualification just goes through the roof.
We are going to be there next month.
What do you mean?
25.
Oh.
Yeah, so we'll be getting that certification very soon.
All right. Okay. Well, kind of going back on tea. Do you ever find like there's a go-to tea that you have?
Yes.
Are you drinking
the one I'm
right
drinking
now?
right now.
Yeah. So
throat coat.
there's so many other teas in the world that you could have.
Yeah, I like a few others, but this is definitely. I mean, when I drink tea, it's usually before D&D.
Yeah.
It's before I'm doing something where I'm talking a lot. Like I did it before I did counseling, so it's and the throat coat's the best for me for that.
Yeah. The reason I ask is, say you've got a bunch of tea in front of you, and you're like, I kind of want to try some other tea, but this one's just so damn good that I feel like picking anything else just wouldn't be.
There's no contest.
There's
really.
no point. No contest.
Yeah.
Speaking of that. Wink.
He's Braxton.
He's Ryan. Thank you for catching that. I was going to forget. We're talking about a certain spell that just came out within a new release in the D&D 5th edition space, Strixhaven.
Yes, we were a little busy this past week.
Yeah.
So we're holding off the Strixhaven review until next Monday. Is when it will be released. But in the meantime, this spell has kind of ran the gamut.
Yep.
We actually mentioned it last episode very briefly because I'd heard a few inklings, a few words here and there, but I wanted to wait till I saw it with my own 3 eyes. If those of you don't know, it's called Silvery Barbs. Came out in Strixhaven Curriculum of Chaos that came out on Tuesday last week. And it has, to me at the very least, and I think many other people, has called into the question the nature of Wizards of the Coast, WoTCs' game development process, and how a spell like this could possibly reach the final product stage.
Yeah.
It also, I would say, calls into legitimacy of future D&D products. But we'll get into that. Let's start with what the spell is, right?
Actually, can I start with a lot of... This is a problem. A lot of people, the first impression they get of Silvery Barbs, I feel like, is an angry Twitter rant.
Right, but you got to have the content. You got to know what the spell is.
Somebody to find it. I actually found it. I didn't know what it did before.
So you just heard a rant?
I just saw a bunch of rants and I actually found it, but you can go ahead.
I will say first, it was originally released in Unearthed Arcana, if you don't recall.
But I don't remember freaking out about it.
Well, it wasn't a spell. See, it was a feature of one of the subclasses.
Holy shit!
That they
scrapped. So that explains it, because it probably had a short rest limit.
I will. I'm glad you asked. I will give it to you. It was released on the 8th of June. Okay. Mm-hmm. Which is about like 6 months, I believe, before Strixhaven came out. And if those of you don't know, they made these subclasses that were like combined subclasses, like wizards and sorcerers.
Almost as controversial as Silvery Barbs is now itself.
It's so controversial that they scrapped the whole idea. And we're like, you know what? Let's just not do that. And people were like, okay, weird, but sure. So this was a level 1 ability for the Silver Quill, the Mage of Silver Quill feature.
Let's go, rep.
You can invoke words laced with magic to demoralize your foes and turn your misfortune into a boon.
I remember this.
To bolster your allies. Immediately after a creature you can see within 60 feet of you succeeds on an attack roll, an ability check, or saving throw, you can use your reaction to demoralize the creature. Unless the creature is immune to being charmed, it re-rolls the d20 and must use the lower roll. Okay. Now, see, the important thing is use the lower roll.
Yeah.
That is disadvantage, more or less.
Yeah.
If the attack roll ability check fails, then you can choose another creature. You can sit within 60 feet. You can also choose yourself. And that creature is empowered, basically giving them kind of like an inspiration in a way. Mm. You can only use this one feature at a time, or one use of this feature at a time, I should say. Once creature fails an attack roll, ability check, saving throw because of a reroll, you can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest.
Okay.
Unless you expend a spell slot to use it again. So it kind of acts as a spell.
Yeah.
But it's still a feature.
Yeah.
Now the difference, I will say, I think it's arguably more powerful than this. The spell is.
Oh yeah.
Quite much so. The differences are, this is a spell, first level enchantment. Okay. It is, instead of a action, it is a reaction. Actually, no, the other one was also technically a reaction. So it doesn't say. It says immediately after. Yeah. Okay. So you use your reaction to cast the spell. When a creature within 60 feet of you succeeds on an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, right? You magically distract the triggering creature and turn this momentary uncertainty into encouragement for another creature. The triggering creature must re-roll the d20 and use the lower roll. You can then choose a different creature you can see within range. You can still choose yourself. The chosen creature has advantage on the next attack roll, ability check, or save throw it makes within 1 minute. A creature can be empowered by only one use of the spell at a time, so it doesn't stack. You can't do it multiple times on the same creature. And what was the other thing I was going to mention?
Longest first level spell description ever, though? And is there more?
No, that's it. But
Okay.
The main difference I would say, besides it being a spell, is it's also affects those that can be charmed. The other one could not affect those that could not be charmed.
You can also use it against your friends.
True. This is true.
In the bad way. So if you're a sneaky rogue.
Now, as Braxton mentioned, though, when you first hear about this spell,
Yeah.
usually you hear a word in conjunction, or I guess technically it's 2 words. I don't know. Power creep is usually what's mentioned.
I don't even know if it's power creep or if it's just bad design.
I think it's a mixture of both. Power creep, if you don't know, is
It's not a creep. It's a fucking leap.
is a process that sometimes occurs in games, not all the time, where new content slowly outstrips the power of previous alternatives. I'd say D&D has done this.
Yes.
Every release has gotten a little
all
bit
the new races, all
better.
the new monsters that come out, aside from
Yeah.
well, actually, the changes to spellcasting are kind of power creep.
Yeah.
Because counterspell, at least as we know now, can't affect it. This is kind of like a counterspell for everything.
Yes.
It
Yes.
beats out shield in many ways.
I'm glad you mentioned that. It's something I'm going to get into. We can definitely talk about shield and a couple other spells.
Yeah. But this is a first level spell with a massive paragraph that does like 2 or 3 different
Just
things.
2 things. Yeah.
And guarantees.
It's a reaction,
Yeah.
which is already powerful. There are not many reaction-based spells.
No.
But on power creep, this is not something that we are not used to with D&D.
Yeah. And I watch a lot of anime, so I know a lot of stuff about power creep, let me tell you.
But yeah, a lot of like card games, Hearthstone, Magic
much.
has a lot of this power creep, and sometimes it gets so much so that the next set is so terrible to try to reset everything, and get things going again. But Pathfinder, I believe, has been pretty good on this. Granted, we don't play it all, constantly. We're pretty new to the Pathfinder space.
True.
But every time I read new Pathfinder material, it's like it seems like it could have been in this book, in the player's handbook originally. So I think D&D has just had its own problems.
I think for Pathfinder, since if you think hard enough about any build, it can get pretty damn strong quickly, but it takes a little bit of thonking to get to it.
Yeah, a lot of building blocks.
And it's unwieldy at times, but again, this is a very amateurish opinion on Pathfinder and how you can do it. I do like that aspect about it. Yeah. This, I don't know how it got off the table, my friend.
I don't. I have a few theories, which we'll cover in a minute, but I'm glad you mentioned Shield, because I think Shield is a good comparison.
Yes.
D&D designers in the past have said that Shield is probably the best spell in the game. Period.
And then they make this.
And then that is what they've. I think they even mentioned something that nothing will ever come close to it. This is our strongest spell. It's those of you who don't know, a shield is a first level, also a reaction. You can only use it upon yourself. While Silvery Barbs, you can use it on other people.
Anything. If there's a dice rolled.
Yeah. It lasts for 1 round, so just a quick kind of thing that busts your AC by 5. Or if it's a magic missile, you take 0.
So the way you can value that is taking a look at what you can do to increase your AC, at least permanently in 5th edition too. You can buy armor that can be really expensive.
You can enchantments.
You can enchantments. You can get classes, levels in different classes, raise your dexterity. A lot of these take level ups and a lot of time, though they're permanent. So you go back to Shield, which is an instantaneous version of it, which is why I raised it by 5, only for a certain amount of time.
Yes.
But that's how you quantify the value of a spell, by looking at where its effect is present in other portions of the game itself. This is just a bunch of things rolled into one.
Yeah.
That you can keep doing if you have spell slots.
Yeah, I think on a quick initial look, Shield is better in one way because obviously it has the guarantee that it will work.
Yeah.
That if you're hit, so you can raise your AC by 5, you're not going to get hit anymore.
Yeah, you hear them. You can use it after the number. You hear it and you do it. Done.
Yeah. So if you don't like randomness, then I guess Shield is still the better choice for you.
Silvery Barbs, you're at the mercy of that D20. The second one, if it's still really high, man.
But the broader implications of Silvery Barbs is where it kind of takes the cake.
Broad implications, you say?
Yeah, it takes again. Like I said, not just yourself. Is he crossing to you?
He just crossed to me.
Nice. The cat just walked from me to Braxton's lap.
God dang.
So Shield only works on yourself. Silvery Barbs works for everybody. Every time something is rolled. I think so. While Shield is a good comparison, because it's also a first level spell. To me, the benefits of Silvery Barbs almost, I think, is a better comparison to the sorcerer's heightened spell ability.
Doesn't it work pretty well with it?
It is it. So heightened spell, when you cast a spell that forces a creature to make a saving throw to resist its effects, you spend 3 sorcery points to give one target of the spell disadvantage on its first saving throw made against the spell.
Okay.
So you're basically doing the same effect, but worse. And it costs 3 sorcery points.
Yeah.
Which, as we get into a second, there's a certain sorcerer that can cast this much cheaper than that. And so 3 sorcery points is actually very expensive.
Yeah.
So the implications, right? The implication. There's a few here. It forces a reroll on save versus one of your own spells. So being a reaction, this is possible. So you could, I don't know, cast Hold Person on somebody, which I want to say is a 4th level spell, maybe 5th level.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah. So you cast Hold Person or Hold Monster on some creature, and they succeed. They rolled a 20. Not natural. 21 or something. And then you're like, oh, shit. Reaction, I cast Silvery Barbs. They have to roll it again.
Why would you want to?
Why wouldn't you? You make them re-roll.
You make them re-roll they take the lower number.
Yeah. So they succeeded, and now they might not succeed.
Oh, I thought you said use. I was like, what are you trying to free them? Like, oh shit, I didn't want to do that. Undo. Just cancel the spell, dumbass.
Damn. But so no, they succeeded, the original. So they're not held. And so you're resetting it to make sure. So you're almost like casting a Hold Person a second time for a 1st level spell slot. In a way.
That is, That's a very good. I did not realize that.
In the action economy, the spell economy, you're saving that extra cast, and you're doing it on the same turn. So you're almost like quickening spell it at the same time.
So this would not be a good Warlock spell, because every spell you cast is at whatever level you do. So it would be better just to cast the
Warlock.
spell
You probably
time.
wouldn't. Yeah, Warlock. You probably
unless you needed it that turn for a reaction. That is you're down leveling your spell's requirement to a reaction.
Sure.
Instead of having to spend your next turn and then do it again. So it could still be good.
Bring
everything back to Wizards of Warlocks podcast.
The next one, I was thinking, level 18 wizards can use it infinitely. We talked about that before the podcast. They can choose it as their level 18 feature, and then they can just use it constantly, which we have said 18. And by that level, your D&D is already getting pretty obnoxious.
But it is also permanent lockdown disadvantage.
Yes. Imagine someone casting this on every creature.
Yeah.
For everything. As their reaction. And once a turn, they can do this for free.
And again, it's that thing like once a turn, blah, blah, blah. And this is a good point to bring in is there any credence / viability what this person is saying? I'll just read it verbatim.
Sure, yeah.
People who are banning Silvery Barbs without thinking about nerfing first are just big, stupid crybabies who can't handle rerolls. It's not even that strong. It takes a reaction and will burn through your spell slots.
Reactions are strong, first of all.
Like, just add concentration, period. Dumbass. Next one. Additionally, people who are...
I can respond to that guy real fast.
Yeah, go ahead. There's more.
I think the problem with that, and the problem with the big theme that we'll get into later is banning it, period, as well. That's again, tossing the onus onto the DM to fix what WoTC has tossed out.
It's true.
I think the problem is not fix the spell, ban the spell. The problem is WoTC has put this into our realm, and now we have to deal with it.
Yeah. So, okay. Additionally, people who are just mad because it's something new and people say it makes things harder for the DM.
Which it does.
But I have DM'd a 4+ person, congrats, campaign over a year, and I would allow it. If you're banning this, just ban every other good option as well, right? No Lucky, no Great Weapon Master, Sentinel, no Blade Singer, no Armor, no Hexblade, no Wish, Foresight, Wall of Force, Shield, Absorb Elements, Fireball, Hypnotic Pattern. Why not just ban every good race as well? Get rid of Variant Humans, Warforged, blah, blah, blah. Why not ban everything? Because apparently you don't want variables in your D20-based game. You're not banning really weak options, but you're banning really strong options. So you think that the kind of DM that wants your players to struggle, do you hate them? You tell them you can't choose this option because it's too strong, but they stay silent. They choose something that's really situational, works badly, even if it's specific circumstances. This person has a lot of projection going on here, I feel.
Yeah, I understand where they're coming from, but I don't agree with it.
Yeah, the rest is I just necessarily didn't need to say. But
because I think it's...
Hold on.
It's a different strength level.
Do you think Kenneth's available?
Like a Wish. Oh, you want to get his take on it?
Hold on. Do you think Kenneth's available?
I mean, he's probably working, right?
I'm still going to give him a phone call. Okay. So
Has he talked about this to you?
I have not heard a single bit of information. So Kenneth in particular, and you can open the door if you want for her. Or you cannot because she's going to go crazy.
We'll see.
So Kenneth is somebody in the Magic the Gathering space who you've also seen in this podcast. Generally is like, you play whatever you want. If it's in the game, you can use it. I don't mind that much. And if you keep playing game like over a long period of time and it sucks, there's a chance he might, but ultimately he's like, anything goes. So I want to see what he has to say about this, and he's probably not going to answer, so I'm going to give him a phone call just real quick. He's probably working at the moment.
Be working now.
But I want to hear a more...
Sleeping?
Oh, hey, Kenneth.
Hey, Kenneth, you're on the podcast.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
You're live.
We're talking about Silvery Barbs, and I wanted to get your initial thought on it as somebody who traditionally is pretty okay with stuff and things like Magic the Gathering, and like you use whatever the fuck.
Okay.
Yeah, so Silvery Barbs, yes or no?
Yes. I mean...
See? He said I mean.
See, I'm fine with it. I'm less fine with it. No, so, context.
That's what I said earlier.
There's a paladin in my group, naturally has a 22 AC. He also has shield. So, shield in my campaign is really bad. Silvery Barbs right now would be better than shield. But I do realize that with Silvery Barbs, you can probably, depends on how the DM rules it, you can bypass legendary resistances.
Yeah, we've not gone there, but this is true.
I thought somebody said online that you cannot.
As written and interpreted, it can be taken kind of two different ways.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. It just depends on how the DM's feeling with that. It's very good. It might be the best spell because it is a first level spell. You're not going to use it at early levels, but when you're higher level and you have just first level spell slots just to throw away, then yeah, that's really good.
Okay.
You
would not ban it.
I wouldn't ban it, no, unless it turns out to be problematic. But initially, no, I don't think I would ban it.
Okay. All right. We just read a Twitter comment, angry, that sounded like you, but angry and unreasonable, basically saying, how dare you ban things? You ban things that are really good, but you don't ban things that are very bad. No more lucky, no more good weapon.
I wouldn't ban it. I would give it a chance first, and then if it became problematic, then because there's always stuff that looks OP, right? But then turns out that's not. Yeah. I mean, Silvery Barbs is OP. But like the Strixhaven backgrounds.
Oh, wait, we're not talking about that. Hey.
Okay. All right.
Strixhaven next week. You can be on that if you want.
Good luck and have those spicy takes.
He's been Kenneth.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
Kenneth.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I expected him to say.
Yeah, I agree with that. And when we talk about it now, since he mentioned it, the legendary resistance thing, depending on how you interpret it, could in theory negate it. So let's go down that rabbit hole real fast.
Well, I guess if you're 18th level permanently, yeah.
Sure. Well, possibly, yeah. Let's go down that rabbit hole if you don't mind.
Let's jump into it. I didn't see it earlier, but
so the interesting thing about it is how it's what the fuck? My computer just freaked out. Okay, there we go. The interesting thing about the legendary resistance. Let's think about it together. Okay, so legendary resistance. You cast Hold Monster on the big bad guy, right?
Yeah. Legendary resistance is just no. Right.
So he does a saving throw. Okay. Let's say he has a failure, uses legendary resistance, which then goes to a success.
Right.
Technically speaking. Though to be fair, he didn't roll to get that success.
It doesn't roll, it just happens.
Exactly. So it depends on how you're interpreting it.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, exactly. And then you could cast Silvery Barbs, and then you have to roll another d20, takes you back around, and you got to roll lower. Or I mean, you have to take the lower roll, I guess I should say.
But they're not rolling.
But then you have to roll again. So in theory, let's say there's no...
Okay, so I cast, I don't know. Yeah, let's just do I cast Hold Person. Make it easy. I was trying to do Warlock stuff.
Hold Person.
Hold Monster on the big bad. And you go, okay, he's going to use his Legendary Resistance. What is my reaction? Do I cast it then?
Yeah. Well, I would say you'd have to do it when he rolled, I guess. So I roll, and it'd have to be...
Is this on a stack?
I don't know.
So before you say you use legendary, before you say you use legendary resistance, I force him to re-roll.
Yeah, I guess
it might not be. This isn't Magic the Gathering. There's no stack.
No, okay. So I roll a saving throw, right?
Yes.
And I fail.
Yeah, and then you go to use your legendary resistance.
Then I go to use the legendary resistance, and then I guess you'd have to Silvery Barb the original instance of them rolling.
I don't think this works.
I don't think it works that way. So let's do it the opposite way. So I do a saving throw. I succeed. The Silvery Barbs. It's like normal, right? Yeah. So I guess it depends on if people are how they're interpreting it.
So are they saying it burns legendary resistance because you can force them to have to use it when they succeed?
Yeah, I guess. Or they force a reroll, and then you do it again.
You can
and
dictate
you fail
when they
again,
use it.
Then you have to use your second legendary resistance.
Why go so roundabout? Just cast it and succeed and have them use the resistance in general. There's got to be something we're missing here. Because in no sense of the way does it make sense that it burns one. And I just saw that. I didn't read too far into it.
Or at least burn maybe one, possibly.
Yeah, but like if you succeed on a spell, they were going to do it anyways.
True.
You know? And whenever your DM
couldn't I just legendary resistance? The Silvery Barbs actually doesn't have a saving.
No.
So you can't do that.
The fact that legendary resistance is not, and somebody in the comments is typing right now, so I appreciate you. The fact that it does not force them to re-roll. You can't make them re-roll legendary resistance because that's not a roll
I
itself.
saw a lot of the legendary resistance mentioned right when this spell came out, and people were like, "This is crazy." And then I've seen a few more pushbacks on it, kind of like what we're talking about now. Yeah, so it doesn't really work as is. The other thing that I know you can do, it negates a critical hit, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
Level 6 wizard, or not level 6 wizard, level 6 sorcerers can cast it with 1 sorcerer point. So that's what I'm saying earlier. So it's better than heightened spell because you just cast it with your 1 sorcerer point.
Silvery Barbs is not working against legendary resistance. Yeah, so sorcery points. It's a coffee lock with this.
Oh, jeez.
Infinite power, as we say.
But now I'd say this gets us into the actual dialogue that we should be having. That Kenneth, so kindly that you asked him, what do we do? Right? Well, what's the answer to Silvery Barbs? If you got problems with it, if you don't have problems with it, do you give it a shot, find out it's terrible, and rework it, take it out? To me, I almost, when Strixhaven came out, and the little bit I've read over it, granted, we're not going to get into spoilers here. Braxton had a revelation. Do you want to share the revelation?
Legendary Resistance specifically says it allows you to succeed the save.
Yeah.
The wording of that is because Silvery Barbs allows you to force them to re-roll a save. They aren't just...
it's about the interpretation,
they aren't
right?
saving, they are succeeding. And you use your reaction on their success to make them re-roll. So Legendary Resistance does not exist as long as you have Silvery Barbs in that interpretation, which is what I would rule it as. Because rules is written, that's what it is. Unless Jeremy Crawford says no, then that's what I'll go with.
And that's the problem with the spell.
Unless the spell says a roll, which technically this is
we need Jeremy Crawford to tweet something about this, I guess.
The physical representations, you roll dice, it sees it's 20 on, it's a 22 and they needed a 23. Legendary Resistance rewrites the world and turns it into a 23. So in that case, the dice has still been rolled and it's magically been rewritten in the fabric of space-time that it is now a 23. That's how it works.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so when I first saw this, and a little bit I've read of Strixhaven so far, is it almost felt like Wizards made Strixhaven on the idea that everything inside of it is for Strixhaven-based worlds only, right? It's a straight, condensed book. The world is inside. It's very tough to take it and put it into your own. But I disagree because...
It's a school.
True. But I also disagree because the new mantra that WoTCs has been talking about is, they've created everything to allow you to put their stuff wherever you want.
Yes.
They had it at the front of it. They don't have it in front of this book, but they had it in front of literally every book that we've read in the last little bit. I think it's also the problem with the spell. It's boring because now this is a spell that if you don't take it, then you should have taken it.
Yeah.
Right.
And they banned Golos on this perspective in Magic the Gathering, though this is an entirely different team, but the homogeny of a class or a way of playing the game comes about whenever there's an option that is the only one you should really choose. And then, you know, you jump in like this person and you word it a bit more nicely and you say, well, just play what you want to play. You don't have to do the most effective option.
But then someone else in your group has it and you're like, man, I should have taken that.
Yeah. Well, then just ban it. Wait a minute. Whoa.
Yeah.
Hold the ban.
That gets us to Redditor Bizzle64 here says,
Ooh.
Their group has talked about it and will either put a restriction upon the spell or just outright ban it. Which gets us to what we mentioned earlier. Is that the answer? To have the group either have a restriction or rework it. Or as Kenneth would just use it, see how it is in game, then maybe rework it and change it.
Yeah, so I always hate this situation because I feel like problems in D&D always come this way. And, you know, that's the idea of the game is you play the one that you want to play, right?
Sure.
And the solution you and I always come to is you do what you want.
Yeah, do your own way.
There's never like an actual do this. And I guess that's kind of how the world is. Sometimes there's never like really a right and wrong. But I agree. Like in that case, it's whatever your group wants to do with it. You know,
True.
Ultimately, the main problem with this, I don't think, is the spell existing. It's that it was written.
Yeah, how would you feel if I, as a DM, had a creature using this on you guys like every turn?
Exactly.
Right.
I entirely forgot about that.
And I could totally see them release, the fact that this exists, I could totally see them releasing this in their new monster format and have it just be a feature instead of a spell. You can
this
counter.
This is now their new counterspell that works with the other abilities, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It'd be annoying because, as we've said before, rerolls are kind of boring. It's not a fun mechanic to deal with.
I mean, it is in Pathfinder a lot, but this is not Pathfinder. And that's definitely what the person I mentioned earlier on Twitter, whose username I'm not saying because I don't want them to get flamed, which usually we don't have a lot of vocal fans or people that like shit on us, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. But yeah, if it was used against me, I'd be pretty upset. I mean, Counterspell already kind of makes me sad in general, but that's not that crazy.
It's just not fun.
It's not.
It's not a fun thing, and D&D is all about having fun.
Yeah, that's ultimately what it comes down to, isn't it?
And if one person's having fun and everyone else isn't having fun, as we mentioned last week, that's not fun.
Yeah. And if I, as a warlock, had access to this and my whole team was like, take Silvery Barbs, you need it. And I'm like, that is permanently in every encounter one of my 2 spells for basically this entire campaign.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like it's like a mixture of a counter spell plus like they took a bard inspiration and just like tossed them together. It's first level. It just feels
And it was a class feature, so it makes sense. So this came about because they were like, shit, what do we do with all this time, money that we spent at these people that designed these classes? We should use these resources. It's like a video game.
To be fair, they didn't use many others. They scrapped a lot of it.
That's very true. So maybe I'm off base.
But I'm glad you bring this up. It's a great segue, Braxton. Great segue.
That's my job.
Now, so the fact it's created, it exists. I don't think this is. Do you think this bodes well for 5.5e that we're all looking forward to in 2024?
I think a lot of things don't bode well for that. This in particular, I feel
they have 3 years to figure things out.
They do, and this is a one-off thing for Strixhaven, and it came about partially because it was a class feature. I think originally, if they said, "Hey, we want to design something that functions like Silvery Barbs," and it wasn't a class feature first, I don't think that's what the spell would look like.
I feel like every release, I have the same, like in my head, I'm like either like what's Fizzband. I was like, this is on the right path. I like most of the stuff in here. This is great. And before that, I was like, I need something to bring me back. You know, I need to have hope for the future. And Fizzband brought me back. Now Strixhaven has knocked me back down for the most part. Yeah. And so now I think the next thing lies on the Monster of the Multiverse book in early January.
Exciting title.
Yeah. Pretty cool title.
Yeah.
But it makes me that's what we have to look forward to. If that kind of falls flat, then I'm really nervous.
The shitty thing now is I think a lot of content creators have felt locked into 5e. And probably. No matter how great or poorly it's designed, it's always, I feel, going to be the most popular one.
Yes.
I don't think
it's
it
the
can
most
be
accessible.
Different. Yeah.
And it's the more show. I mean, Critical Role is on it. A lot of big shows are used.
Even other media like Stranger Things and other stuff. It's just too ingrained into this generation and people right now. So it's just like when you want to play a fantasy tabletop game, oftentimes people are like, there are others.
Yeah. Tabletop RPGs. Yeah. It's not just D&D.
But let's go back. Were you going on specifically the design side of things, or was that kind of your statement on it?
For which one?
For when I mentioned the fact that it was written this way. I was expecting you to maybe have gone into like the people who worked on it.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Okay, shit. All right, that's what I'm excited to hear.
I got a few more questions I want to hit on
first.
first.
Yeah, let's do it.
So first of all, mentioning the anticipation is the early books for D&D 5e specifically were not perfect, right? The player's handbook's not great, but if you look at it in isolation by itself, it set a good groundwork, right? I mean, it's the problem I think is then the power creep of then what came later is like this is way better than what came before.
I mean, I've definitely had that perspective when I first looked at D&D. That's the only thing I knew existed.
Like,
so
holy shit,
I was like, oh, hey, it's pretty cool.
But each new release has the same conversation where we're like, this is better than before. This makes me nervous for what's coming in the future. So does this WoTC not know how to balance things? Is that the problem? I mean, they used to, right? And I mean, it's kind of historically speaking, at the very least.
I don't know.
Well, historically, each edition, as it's gone on, has gotten more and more broken until the release of the next edition.
That's such a typical thing. Even if you look at comic books, almost all of them end up being like a universe span. That's why there's a multiverse.
That's why power creep. Yeah, they have to somehow make it better. So each book that they've released makes the edition more and more broken to like, oh shit, we got to just reset everything. That's like, comic books are like, oh my god, we've messed up the universe so much. Let's just hit a hard reset. Flash went too far into the future, and now he's made a whole other dimension. Let's hop to that dimension instead.
Spoilers.
I don't think that's
sorry. I spoiled so fast with Flash that we couldn't come back.
Sorry, I'm slurping. So how does this happen? Right? There's a few theories why this has happened.
Oh, so people are really okay. All right, let's do it. So
first one, WoTC's team is not as big as it should be, which means these types of things can slip through the cracks. I mean, there's no QA department, or they don't have time to. They're crunched on time, so they don't have enough people to design tests and everything. Maybe the people are working on separate areas, so the guys that are making the spells aren't working on this thing and aren't working on that thing, and so combined together, it's a little bit much.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah. I mean, working where I work in general, like hiring and whatnot, I see a lot of how engineering teams and design teams function. Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with that theory is, I mean, it is with Hasbro. Sure, that's a big company. WoTC underneath that is also a big company, but maybe their resources are allocated different ways. COVID's obviously changed how a lot of stuff works. So there's a lot of theories. And maybe all these theories I want to mention, maybe it's everything together that's combined.
Very well could be.
Next one being that the lead designers for D&D currently are ideas and story people and not number crunching math dudes. This also, from what I've read and what I've kind of researched, leads credence to this theory because the surveys that they release and how they gather their data from Unearthed Arcana, they've talked about the way they look at these surveys, for the most part, are in word bubble form, not in like graphs and stuff. It's all word bubbles. And they see which word bubble is the biggest, and that's how they kind of get their information. And that's not data. I mean, it's data, but it's not like number crunching, like, oh, this is why people don't like this. It's more like, oh, Overpowered's a little big, and so is Silvery Barbs. Okay, maybe we should look at that.
And you know the silly thing about all this is whenever you're on a team like that and that's something that you use, there's always so much pushback on changing things because it slows development down.
Yeah.
So if they have a faulty way of testing things, it won't change unless they hire somebody new that takes a look at what they
would have to hire a math, like someone that's into the stats and into that type of stuff, someone to take over that kind of that department, which I don't know if they would do.
Recruiting team, get on that shit.
And I don't disagree with this because I think the story and the world and the stuff that they build is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always like, I'm gonna take that and put it in my world. Take that and put it in my world. There's definitely a lot of passion, especially when they got James Wyatt back in there making like Fizzband stuff and the dragons and the lore. Beautiful work.
Can I say though, do you necessarily need to be a math whiz for Silvery Barbs?
No, but on I would say in a vacuum, cool idea. And I've seen this with Magic and Hearthstone. Like when I used to play Hearthstone way back in the day, I'd followed some of the developers on Twitter, and I'd see them post how when we developed this in the room, we didn't think about this interaction. It's just you don't have the time and the team to test every card interaction.
Yeah,
and you don't
absolutely
you just don't think about it as a. You probably look at the set and be like, okay, how would this work with this item and work with this card? And so with this, they're like, this is a cool lore and fits in with Silver Quill and that type of stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to see everything. And when you go down to the simple fact of like just literal math, when you start multiplying by exponentials and you just do 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 2 times 2, and they keep going. There's a lot of variables here. So I won't put it past them. Could I design something better? Do I know how to balance things? Definitely not.
Yeah. I homebrew all day. I tell people in our Discord I homebrew all day, but I've never once homebrewed a spell or a class. Yeah. I just it hurts my head too much to think about all the interactions
exactly.
like that. Last one to me kind of combines multiple possibilities together. So tie-ins to MTG may not allow for much turnaround time, which period their turnaround time already might be pretty tough for editing and playtesting. And I think it, like I said, it would be true for most products, but maybe more so for MTG because they're like, we're working on Strixhaven. We just released that a few sets ago. We're going to make an MTG or a D&D tie-in to MTG. We should have a D&D tie-in to
Is there
MTG.
a Silvery Barbs equivalent?
In MTG? That I don't know.
I don't think so. Not specifically.
I don't think so. Because when Ravnica released the Ravnica D&D book, there was nothing really a problem with that.
No.
Which again could lead to COVID.
That's pretty cool, actually.
COVID has made the crunch even worse. Maybe they're not able to work all together. Maybe they used to be all sitting in a room kind of bouncing ideas off each other. But I think the difference here is the UAs, I think, is a good indicator for this kind of quick crunch turnaround time, because we used to see, for example, the Artificer. We saw the UA for that years before it ever came out.
Yes, that was being worked on for ages.
We've seen, I'm sure, even just in this podcast, the last 2.5 years or whatever the hell, 3 years, we've seen UAs released much closer and closer to release than previously.
Yeah.
For example, UA Strixhaven was only 6 months ago and received so poorly that they changed the concepts for the final release entirely. To me, UA feels almost more like an excitement generator than pure testing nowadays.
I would agree. That's all it is for me. I'm like, oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, that looks cool. Different. And then we read it and like, I hope they change this. I hope they reword that.
Oftentimes it's more reaching than whatever gets actually released. Mm-hmm. And that's generally design. Idea is bring more to the table so you can cut. It's easier to cut than to add things back.
But I feel like even as recent as like 1.5 years ago, they'd released when they released all those classes and stuff leading up to Tasha's, it was a lot in advance. And they released a few at a time. We'd check them out and go, oh, this is kind of cool. This is cool. Then a few weeks would go by, they release another one.
We definitely haven't gotten as much lately. And I think that's probably because they're really working on the new edition of D&D. But
probably. That's
not coming out for another 2 or 3 or 4 years. I don't know.
No, not for a hot minute.
Can we make more relevant psychic lance? That's just a decent damage spell that doesn't beat out everything, but it's good. We need more non-damaging spells that are good that don't bust the game like this. But those are hard to design, though. Mm-hmm. Since monsters just have skill features that cast spells, the only things that they will be able to just cast that aren't damaging are those that are going to be the actual spells, the ones that kind of affect the world.
Yeah.
So if you think about this having been a class feature and turning it into a spell, that's directly leaning into that design philosophy is how do we balance a spell that is now a feature of a creature or a lineage, a race?
Mm-hmm. I'd love to bend the ear of some of the developers just to talk. I would love to know what the workroom is like and how is that, because the difference with I didn't see it with this one, but with Candlekeep, yeah, Candlehaven. With Candlekeep, that was almost entirely third-party writers were brought in. I don't think that's how it is with this one, but I think that's a good example of what WoTC's been trying, and I think it's got place. There's a place for it because Pathfinder does that a lot. They bring in third-party people to write new areas, new parts of the world, expand on stuff, and they usually make it people that are experts in that field or are able to write better than maybe the Pathfinder authors could on that area. And WoTC, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what their perspective is.
Yeah.
What their writing room looks like, how many people they have on staff, that type of stuff. So I'm not entirely sure how much crunch is in with that, why they brought in all those third-party people, maybe just to add more people to their team for a little bit.
I'm almost certain it's a Zoom meeting or an office room that they jump into and they sit down from the very start and they go, okay, we've got these aspects of Strixhaven. Mm-hmm. We've written it. what does the Silver Quill do? They lace their words with daggers and hurt people with their wit. Maybe we give them something like the bards, this, and that. How would that look like as a spell? Oh, maybe it gives its advantage. Literally just conjecture. Just sitting around like people in D&D, having a good time and thinking of exciting things for the game.
Yeah, it reminds me of whenever I wrote for film and stuff. It would just be me and my buddies sitting around and just like that. They had like a whiteboard, like, oh, yeah, that's cool. We write that down, and then we somehow try to combine it all together, which again leads to our idea that maybe these are just more story-based people, and they're like trying to fit their idea into a mechanic, which can be hard.
Yeah. So, do you think they have a team that works on the mechanic side of things? Not math crunchers, but they say, hey, here are ideas right now. Kind of try working this in the game. You can bring it back to us and ask if you can change it.
Well, I very much did my best to look for that. I'm glad you mentioned that. When I was looking at the book, I was curious. I was like, do they have a specific area that says, mechanics or something? Quality testing, maybe. Quality testing, something like that. And I didn't. That's why I didn't write it down in my notes at all. Let me pull it up here real fast. Okay. What's the book? What's Strixhaven?
Strixhaven.
So let me go to such a hard time with that name. Let me go to the credits here. I didn't see anything in particular. That's why I was going to try to look for them. So they have lead designers, assistant lead designers, an art director, which the art looks kind of cool. Designers. So that might be the people we're looking for. The designers. They have a Strixhaven world designers, probably the guys that wrote it and made it for MTG. I would imagine. James Wyatt is in here, and he loves MTG, so probably a lot of him. Oh, here we go. Rules developers, maybe? That's Jeremy Crawford, though. We know
rules developers. I mean, Jeremy Crawford himself also has, his tome of sage advice or whatever.
Yeah, I imagine he might be like the final say guy. Like someone that has an idea brings them. He's like, yeah, it looks great.
Yeah,
that fits in perfect. There was another name on here. There's only 2 names in that list. I do not recognize his name. Ben Petrozor. He's here on LinkedIn. I don't know if this is him. His experience as a copywriter. I don't know if this is the guy I'm looking for. Regardless, there's only 2 people on a rules team. That seems pretty light. For granted, I guess this book is not heavy on mechanics. And that'd be about it. Everything else is like editors, graphic designers, cartographers. That's a fun job.
Cartographers.
Then we have the D&D studio. Yeah, so I imagine it's either designers or rule developers that work on that type of stuff.
Okay. And that can't be their sole job because they're not doing this year round, I guess. They probably have other things that they need to do as well. So,
right.
Again, bending the ear would be pretty great, but yeah.
I try reaching out to some of these guys on Twitter. Have an interview on it. That'd be kind of fun.
That'd be fun. We don't have the clout, but it would be fun.
Right.
Okay. I think we kind of...
Just out of curiosity, I did check Tasha's. Their rules development team is 4 people, so it's a little bigger. So I imagine that's probably what we're looking at.
And well, Tasha's in that case is essentially just a bunch of rules and mechanics.
Yeah, that's what I was curious. I was hoping
makes sense.
That they'd have a bigger team.
Please. Those are the best books, but they can't release them.
They also have Ben Petrozor on this one as well, so it looks like he's been around for a little bit.
Okay. All right. Is that it on Silvery Barbs? Sorry if you were expecting us to get super heated on it. We're pretty level-headed about these sorts of things.
The spell's not great. I'm more so curious on how it came about and what this says about the future for D&D.
Yeah. I think it was just kind of an oversight. That's my...
I agree. And I'm hoping that I hate to say it, as COVID hopefully slows down in the next... things are slowly getting back to normal. Then we got a new variant going around. And the word is the variant's not as severe as the other ones, hopefully. That's what we're hearing. But hopefully as the world kind of goes back to normal, businesses can go back to working in person again, maybe more. Maybe these problems will be ironed out. Does make me nervous, though, that that Monsters Multiverse, the biggest book that I think they've ever released, comes out in a month and like a week.
We need bestiaries. Ugh.
Well, it's not just a bestiary. It's gonna have all the races in it. Like it's the big combination of everything, as far as I'm aware.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's coming out January 25th.
So this is a new player's handbook. They will not word it that way, but will it function as one?
Yeah, so all they've really said about it so far, and I was checking to see if they'd announced any other books for 2022. The answer is no. So it's just Monsters of the Multiverse.
Okay.
So we don't know what's coming out after this, but it's going to have 30 plus playable races. Setting agnostic is what they say as well. Setting agnostic. And over 250 monsters, along with various improvements. Whatever that means. And new artwork.
Yeah. I don't want them to take notes from the video game industry, but it's okay to release a book for like $20 to $40 every now and again. If it's got that much content into it, I'm okay with it. Not everybody is. Not everybody has the cash to throw $20 at a book that they can get from somewhere else or make up on their own. But hey, it's fine. It's okay.
Oh, interesting. So the only other little thing we do know is that Amazon posted let a page go live, a new D&D book for March 15th, 2022. No nothing on what it is, but it seems to be a tentative date for another book.
A different one?
Yes, because the other one's coming out January 25th.
It's just gonna be another setting or something.
Which still makes me nervous, because you still cannot buy Monster of the Multiverse outside of the bundle.
We haven't gotten
which is $150.
Any super recent Unearthed Arcanas, have we?
No, we've not gotten an Unearthed Arcana in a hot minute.
Then I have no idea what the one on the March could be. So,
yeah, the theory on a Bell of Lost Souls.net says it could be Spelljammer.
Really?
They said, Chris Perkins said, I don't know what this is referring to. Because Chris Perkins apparently said that the first book of 2022, which we know is Monster of the Multiverse, will take us to a new place we've never been before.
Yay, new setting.
But is he not referring to Monster of the Multiverse?
Is a multiverse a setting, Ryan?
Well, maybe he's referring to the new place as in a bunch of changes to previous races.
I think when he says place, he means like a setting.
I don't know.
That's what I'll lean into.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
This is merely conjecture, though.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's that.
We all set?
Yeah.
All right.
And then next week we'll be covering Strixhaven.
Yes, Strixhaven. So keep an eye out for that. Usually when we do our reviews for that, it starts off with just our opinions. So if you want spoiler free, you can still jump in and check it out for a little bit. But it's not conjecture, though.
Our social media.
Yeah, we do have those at Dungeon Crawl Pod, and I haven't been super active on it lately, but that's for Twitter and Instagram. For email, thedungeoncrawlpod@gmail.com. We have one of our lovely DMs, Kostas, who is DMing currently a Zelda 5th Edition game right now, asking if he wants some players for an Arcane D&D
League of Legends.
And it takes us a while to schedule these sorts of things, so now would be a good time to jump in, get to know us, and see if maybe you'd fit in with the group and be able to play in a couple of weeks.
He's a good DM. Recommend it.
He is a very good DM. He particularly said in one of our last sessions that he loves messing with warlocks, paladins, and clerics. Because patrons and gods.
Those are fun.
Same difference. Outside of that, that is in the link tree itself. So when you go in our description, you can find that down below. And also in that link tree is our Patreon. If you feel like supporting us, helping this channel grow and kind of financially support everything else that's going on, that'd be super great. Scrolling across is our tried and true supporter, scrolling over the screen. That's all I've got at the moment. Thank you so much for the support and any support that comes in the future. Ryan.
So a little bit of pop culture stuff. Do you know the new Spider-Man
His
movie?
fucking face when he does this. Yes.
Is
it out?
No, it comes out this Friday.
Checks watch. Yeah, I guess.
I think so.
I don't know.
I don't know. I want to see it, but I don't have. I waited too long, and I doubt I can find a seat.
Yeah.
For like a month now. Regardless, minor spoilers. Multiverse stuff in there. A lot of nonsense happening. Which actually, I just had a random thought. Monster of the Multiverse and the Marvel universe is coming together. The next Doctor Strange movie is called Multiverse of Madness. I think they hit the SEO pretty hard on multiverse, so they might be.
That is
pretty.
true.
Might have done that on purpose. I wonder. Regardless, my point being is I was watching. Unfortunately, I went to go see a movie recently. I actually couldn't tell you which one. Oh, Encanto. I went to go see.
Oh, yeah, was it good?
Very good. I enjoyed it. But as trailers are, I saw like the entirety of the Spider-Man movie while I was sitting watching a 2-minute trailer for the film. I did not want to see this trailer, but I was subjected to it. But while I was watching it, they hopped through like this portal that was taking them to a different dimension.
Spider-Man spoiler, sorry.
Well, it's everyone knows what they're gonna do already. It's multiverse stuff.
Surprised some people are like
multiverse. They were hopping in. Multiverse stuff was happening. Whatever. Traveling to a different multiverse. I don't know what was happening. Doctor Strange like opened something, sure. But I saw inside there was a dimension in there that had us.
Just us, only us.
Well, it wasn't the whole dimension.
We are just literally.
But we were one of like whenever people do like portal stuff, there's like things are stretching, and I saw our face was like stretching wide, and I heard us whisper very quietly into
with wide mouths, whispered quietly.
Yeah, but what's the Tom Holland? I think is his name. Tom Holland's ear. Spider-Man whispered into his ear. Rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And the second he got out of this portal, he paused for a second and whipped out his nice little iPhone and typed in.
While he's freaking out, being stretched, going through dimensions, seeing unspeakable things.
Yeah, Doctor Strange was like, "What are you doing? We got stuff to do.
How do you have service here?"
But he rated us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Apparently, he's an avid listener. At least Spider-Man is. I don't know about Tom Holland.
Speaking of avid listeners, though, I think we mentioned this before, but we were checking stuff for YouTube for quite some time, and I forgot to check our podcast distributor, and we hit 20,000 listens.
Yeah,
it took
iTunes, Apple Podcasts is looking good, Spotify's looking good, and all the other ones that people use.
We, I think, at least on Buzzsprout, our distributor, it took us like a year and a half to get to 10,000, and then it took us under a year to get to 20. So, thank you. Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. You kind of, as a podcaster, you kind of get tunnel vision sometimes.
You do, definitely.
Where I'll look at just one platform for a little bit, and then we were doing YouTube pretty hard for a minute. And so I was looking at YouTube, like, man, YouTube's looking good. And then I was like, well, I didn't even look at the other options. And then I hopped over to look at Spotify and wherever you lovely people, audio listeners listening to us.
Yeah.
Been popping off. So I appreciate you guys continuing to come back, maybe hitting up your friends. We had a high number in, where was it? Canada was pretty high. Australia, not too bad.
Canada's my fault for the stuff I've been doing with streaming lately. A lot of my new friends.
Do you have any Australian friends?
I do.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm getting a lot of my new friends watch. Well, they're telling their friends about it too.
Yeah. Either way, Australia, Canada, appreciate it. At least in the U.S., like New York was pretty high.
The big places.
Some other places I don't remember, but not places where we live. So that's nice. It used to just be that. So it's fun to see other people in the world listening to our podcast.
Yeah. Thank you. Speak up. Jump out on @DungeonCrawlPod on Twitter or something. I want to
have in Discord.
Meet you guys. The thing I've been experiencing with my stream stuff on the side, I'm being vague about it on purpose, but it's a really open community. I want to make, or at least try to make, a more open community in D&D and tabletop stuff rather than everybody coveting their trade secrets. Yeah, MTG has
slowly kind of gotten that way with some of the MTG groups on YouTube and stuff. They're making their own little communities.
Yeah, I want to open it, get a little circle of people. There's probably circles that I'm just not involved in and I just don't know. So
maybe. Critical Role's pretty open, but they had to change that a little bit recently.
Yeah, but anyways.
So it's big.
He's been Ryan.
He's been Braxton. We're the Dungeon Crawl. Thanks for calling with us.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week. As you can see, we've changed our day again. We're trying to find one that works the best. So we're planning on recording on the weekends now and then releasing it on Monday.
Yeah. If you watch the last few episodes, especially, that Thursday is the day where I've got a shitload of meetings at work. So I've been dead. And I've had nothing. It's just a nice little Sunday. Super easy. We'll see you guys for the next episode.
For Strixhaven, baby. Let's go.
Let's go. Not very excited, but it'll be fun.
Damn.
Be excited for the episode, though. Get out here. Fucking stupid.
This podcast sucks, dude.